board meeting of Tuesday, April 25th, and we have 4 of our 5 members present. If you could just say that you're here. Nick?
Present.
And I Ching?
Present.
And Carrie?
Present.
Excellent. And so one thing I can say about this evening's meeting that is the continued hearing for the 1016 Mount Vernon Street. The applicant sent a letter saying that he would request that we continue this meeting, continue the hearing, not in this meeting, but in a future meeting, which I understand is to be on May, one second, please.
9th.
May 9th. Yes, that's correct. And so I don't know procedurally, I guess I should open the meeting. Okay, do I need a vote to open the hearing?
You need a motion to open the hearing on 1016 Mount Vernon Street.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. So now we have the meeting of the continued hearing of 1016 Mount Vernon is open. And
Hold on, Sally. Actually,
I thought we weren't doing that until next.
No, I have to open it, report, and close.
On Concom, we opened it and then we voted to open it, and then we voted to defer, to postpone
To
till the next
continue.
one.
Or
Okay.
Do you do that at 7:30 though, or do you do that right now?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think we should wait to 7:30 because others
Yeah.
might be attending. Okay, that's very helpful. So while we're in this hearing, we're still open. I can give you one update, which is that Carrie did a very nice job of capturing admit. And I'm going to admit, will you make?
Yeah,
Brian-
Sally, don't worry about those emitting things. I'll
Okay,
take care of that.
Carrie made a very good task today of capturing from the minutes of our last meeting, the recording of the last meeting, those items that we had identified as the absolute must be done by interim town planner. And so I forwarded that email to Beth and the planning board, and I said, thank you, Carrie, first of all, and that I have a call into the former candidate who declined, Kelly, because she mentioned in her letter to us that she knows somebody who might be an option for an interim town planner. I left her a message. I hope she'll call me back. And I told Beth that I would be happy to reformat what Carrie put together into whatever format is necessary for posting for the position of interim town planner. So that's that update. And another update is that our ADU working group is meeting on Friday, and we will be reviewing and approving the final, for now, version of the ADU 3-panel brochure, so that it can be, and many thanks to Felicity for offering to get it up to Staples to reproduce. And one thing we'll talk about tonight is the number of copies. No, we'll talk about that, excuse me. We'll talk about that in the Friday meeting that we think we need for 3 purposes. One is for the meeting on the 11th, one is for the literature rack outside the building department, and one is for our table at Town Day. And what else?
So with that, today I met with El Weil and the building department regarding the EU documents necessary for people who are starting to ask about it. And so I will finalize some of those documents and submit them to the ADU working group for approval.
On Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, that will be great. And then in addition to having that brochure printed and maybe those FAQs printed or whatever it is that you've prepared, it would also be appropriate that they would go onto a link on the building department and the planning department and the planning board and website. And if John Serbier wants it to be linked to the Housing Partnership Board, is there another board that
Disability Access?
Thank you, DAC. So once we get through the ADU meeting on Friday, we can talk perhaps on Friday or Monday about who can work with, is it Jen Caffarelli in Town Hall who does the updates on the website? Yeah. And that will be great. But we're looking forward to that Friday accomplishment. And then I don't know what else to update you on. Well, I can update you. Well, you were all at town meeting last night. Um, and we have about 7 minutes till we open our hearing. So I can raise one question that I was posed to me by Diab, who's not here this evening, and he asked that we feel free to discuss it without him here, which is whether whether this board believes that with a different chair, we stand to have articles pass at town meeting, because he attributes the failure of 2 articles at town meeting last night to perhaps in some part him being the chair. I don't want to speak for him, but that's what prompted him to ask the question.
That's a big discussion for 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's a huge discussion. I mean,
So why don't we not do it in 7 minutes, but we've put it on the table, and I will just repeat what I've said before, that I'm not really interested in chairing this board because it's highly complex and otherwise challenging. But
Yeah.
I do what I have to do if that's what you guys want.
well,
But-
well, Sally, I mean, if we end up coming to that determination, which I think merits discussion, but then I think that you would, I mean, if we think we'll get things passed with you as chair, then I think that needs to be considered.
Well, your guess is as good as all of ours. I think that it will be appropriate for us to try to debrief the failure of 2 meetings from yesterday evening, and use that as a platform for learning, and that should include our town council when we do so.
I think it's important to say that I hate that Diab is thinking his being the chair of the board is what made a couple of complicated measures fail. And then I guess if we're going to sort of ruminate on it before we meet next time, this might be this might be obvious, and I should probably know this, but does the chair have to be the person who does all of the presenting, or can the chair assign someone else to present if that's something that's sort of, he doesn't like doing that or something?
It's the latter. The chair, if you look at presentations from various boards, like the select board, and say they're sponsoring an article, they'll have one or the other of somebody come up and present it, for instance.
So
Right, that was my big question too, Carrie. I feel like the chair doesn't necessarily have to be the one say telling the story at the town meeting or presenting the thing. Because I think the ADU bylaw, it was a really collaborative thing. And, of course, we had a town planner at the time too, who really helped out in telling the story and presenting it. So I think that's a consideration, the chair doesn't necessarily have to be the face of that presentation necessarily.
Right. And I will just repeat for our guests who were here that Diab is out ill this evening, so I'm chairing the meeting for the evening, and I Ching is helping with the screens. Thank you very much. So what other updates can we share before our 7:30 hearing? It's just so much going on. And I usually have all my little cheat sheets at my desk. One thing I can give you an update on is that Diab and I are following up with FinCom to clarify what we believe is a misunderstanding, that there was an error in the amount of $17,500 in our budget request. That is not accurate. And so I have a call into Mylin, and hope that we can reconcile whatever. And that's happening hopefully in the next day or two, because town meeting is on Thursday, which is in 2 days. So. Other updates? I guess, yeah.
I mean, I guess the big one, you have already mentioned the work, I guess, what we're doing to get an interim town planner. do we need to discuss that any further, or is that just happening?
Well, I think I sent to the whole planning board, and perhaps I Ching can bring it up on her screen, the very good work that Carrie did,
Yes, yep, that was excellent.
rubbing the video of our meeting on Tuesday, the
18th.
thank you. And she
And
captured,
thank you to WinCam for getting it to me so fast. They were great.
yay, WinCam.
Hey, WinCam.
You've never let me down, WinCam, when I've had an emergency, so thank you for that. So what Carrie came up with is what you see on your screen here. These, what is that, 8 tasks.
Sorry.
Assisting with the CBD petitions, and we can quickly touch on each one. Managing subdivision approvals with us. The MBT 3A participation and problem solving and action items, huge. And whatever we need to do about the Waterfield lot.
Do we know anything about that? Is that anything that is up for
what we know,
debate?
Nick,
Or
is
is it more a rote kind of process?
well, what we know is that they're applying as a PUD in the Center Business District, for which we are the permit granting authority. That's what I believe. That's what I believe I know. I should say that's what I think I understand. Is there any difference between the two? And they are just a few days away, I believe, from finishing up the package for that application. And DAB has been giving them very strong support, answering questions about submittal requirements and so on. When we get that package, it will be big and it will require careful review. And thank you, I Ching. And it will require us to identify 53G consultants and require us to reach out to other boards and departments in town. And I will need help from council in guiding that process to make sure that we don't miss legal deadlines. You know, from X days of X, one must, so-and-so shall X. I don't have that committed to memory. And Brian was very good about that. So that will be something. And then the other thing, all right, 7:30, we can go back to
7:30.
Carrie's. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have already voted to open the public hearing for 1016 Mount Vernon Streets. We opened it early, not realizing it wasn't 7:30. And so now it is open, and I can report to those in attendance and those on the board that Mr. Levitt is in receipt of the 53G consultant's letter and was unable to have his architect attend this evening's hearing. And at his request, we have continued the discussion to May 9th. And we haven't chosen a time for that. Should we say 7:30 on May 9th?
Yeah, why don't we do it early? And
okay, so
hopefully everyone that's here can make it on the 9th that wants to be.
Well, Diab couldn't make it because he's sick, and the John's architect couldn't make it because I don't think he had it in his calendar at such short notice. I believe, I'm not sure. So May 9th at 7:30 is the time of continuation of the public hearing on proposed changes to 1016 Mount Vernon. So I would have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Oh, do we need a motion to make it to time certain?
I thought
Oh.
we moved to continue it. No?
No, we make a motion to continue to that time. Please do.
Okay,
Move
I
to
make a
continue.
motion to continue the public hearing for 1016 Mount Vernon Street to May 9th at 7:30.
I
Correct. Second?
My second.
Oh, thank you very much. All in favor? Let's see, we'll go around the room. Nick
Aye.
and I Ching
Aye.
and Carrie,
Aye.
and Sally says aye also. So we have 4-0 with 1 absent. So that closes that public hearing. We can move on to the approval of the minutes. And I really do apologize for leaving my marked up copies back at my house when I came over here to borrow I Ching's internet because we don't have it. But do any of you have edits?
No, but I can't say that I looked at it super carefully.
Right. So we could choose to put these off to a future meeting, knowing that this meeting is going to be short anyway, and the other ones will be long. It's a really bad idea.
Did anybody else have any comments?
I'm looking,
Oh, God. Yeah, I can call Nancy if there's some other thing that I find in my notes, and we can decide if we have to reopen the minutes based on what I marked up on my pad. A lot of times I just mark up typos and things, like there was a word misspelled or something. But so why don't we vote to approve them for now? Can we do that?
well, we'll do the first one first.
Okay, so we're voting to approve. I can't see the top now. Oh, the first set of minutes being the April 4th planning board meeting, attended by all 5 of us.
I move that.
To approve those, okay, and
Second.
thank you. Vote, Nick,
Aye.
I Ching,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and I, Sally, say aye. So that is to approve the April 4th minutes. And thank you, Nancy, for taking such great minutes. And similarly, for the April 6th minutes, this was the in-person participation.
The interview for.
That was the
Right,
interview.
this is the
Right.
interview. Does anybody have any edits to this document? It's very short.
No.
Add tears.
Tears? Nancy,
There's
you
a
have a
sad-
tears icon you can
Oh,
put in.
tears, because, yeah, I know it, I know.
That's okay. You can hold back on the tears icon, but we all know it means it needs to be there. So do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
And we'll take a vote. Carrie
Aye.
and I Ching
Aye.
and Nick
Aye.
and Sally, I say aye. So these minutes are approved. And again, thank you, Nancy, for taking such excellent minutes. But wait, there's more? April 11th?
One more. Mhm.
Okay. Scrolling, I Ching. Updates. Right, keeping going. Planning board articles. Intent. Right. Oh, the petition for 8789. Let's see what. Oh, the presentation, that's right. Okay. And then 40 Foxcroft. Let me just look at that one carefully. Adjacent property. Not aware. Remove. It's too large. Very similar. Criteria site plan review. And then I think these minutes seem fine to me. It passed 310, right? Okay, so oh, but wait, there's more.
Rocky Ledge.
Right.
That was the marathon meeting, Rocky Ledge.
Yeah,
So,
there are a lot of waivers.
yeah, these is the granting of the waivers. We granted the waiver for using a looped water main. And we granted a waiver to allow 1 means of access instead of 2, which is the cul-de-sac waiver. And oh no, that's actually not true. The cul-de-sac waiver. is, I guess, B and C. I'm sorry that in the absence of a town planner, but we approved both of those. And then a waiver for sidewalks, we approved that. And we came to an agreement for a reduced number of plans. He's going to submit 1 original, 3 full-size, and 7 reduced size sets, and an electronic version. Oh, okay. And that motion passed. And a waiver for location of all existing, within the 200 feet of the property line. Yes, we granted that waiver. And the waiver for the profile of the existing proposed left and right of the waiver. I remember the conversation, and I remember that we passed it. And then the waiver for the profile of the existing proposed grades left and right of the right-of-way lines. And a waiver for the traffic study, and a waiver for land contours extending 150 feet. So we granted those waivers. They all passed. Yes, right. And then we had an excellent presentation from Mr. Manter of the engineering department. And the recommendations and the conditions. Oh, that's right. We had to approve the conditions. Can you scroll back up again?
Yeah.
That we conformed construction drawings show location of underground electric. Oh, these are the conditions. Thank you. I'm sorry. And other conditions, the HOA, yes. Includes the operation maintenance plan. We approve, then endorse, but cannot endorse until we get a performance guarantee. Right, so that condition is conditioned on getting a performance guarantee, and that is something that Diab and Attorney Tallerman are working on. So we can't actually move forward on this project until we get that. And it's been moved, it's been extended also to May 9th, which is good to know. So we should choose a time certain for that, or did we already?
No, I think that was the end of it, and they were just going to reconvene
To complete the process?
do that.
Okay, so it will be on the May 9th agenda. So this is 10/16.
Oh,
And then it will also be Rocky Ledge. And by then we will have the performance agreement to review and approve, I think, or maybe the town council and town manager approve it. I'll find out. And once all those things are together, the decision can be published, which is something I'm working on. So that in the agenda, so that's the approval of the April 11th minutes, right? Any other edits? Hearing none, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll move that. I move it.
And a second, okay. Nick, vote.
Aye.
Yi-Ching
Aye.
and Carrie.
Aye.
And I, Sally, vote aye. So these minutes are approved. And next on our agenda, we have Town Day planning. So that's kind of a fun thing to talk about. It's a key opportunity for the planning board to make friends and raise the community's understanding of the work that we do and the projects that we're working on, and to pick up information about the planning board. So the tasks are to identify literature that we would have available on the table, and then come up with people to create and produce that literature, like write it, lay it out somehow. I did the thing in Word, whatever, and get them photocopied for the table. And also to decide if we want to have visuals in our tent. We have reserved a tent, I guess they call them canopies, and a table. So we can have tabletop materials and we can have easel hung or canopy hung materials, if you can all visualize Town Day. And the goal would be to make it an inviting and informative place where people would become excited and informed about the work that we're doing for the future of the town. So what thoughts do we all have? I open it to the board.
Well, I think our top priorities should be presented. So I would say some of our top priorities might be, well, getting the ADU pamphlets out since they're being produced.
Yep.
North Main Street, coupled with getting people introduced to MBTA 3A, I think would be really helpful.
Yep.
If we could get form in place to start helping us get some stuff to get engaged
We
with the
can
community.
definitely get materials from Foreman Place on North Main Street. And I believe that we can work with the cohort consultant on appropriate materials for the 3A communications. I do know that the last 3A cohort meeting that I went to, which had like, I don't know, 9 towns in it, the common thread in all of their reports was difficulty in explaining 3A to their community in a way that they understood. And it's not because people are dumb, it's because it's really
Right.
complicated.
Right.
Who is the cohort, or what is the?
So the cohort is, so the Massachusetts hired consultants to be available to every 3A community. And the consultants were assigned a cohort of towns, which included Winchester. And I can maybe even find in my emails the other towns. And they were, I believe, gathered together because they have common attributes relative to their population, their density, other factors that made them similar to us with regards to 3A compliance. I don't know that, but that's what I believe is probably the reason that they formed that cohort. The news that I just got today is that they're dividing that cohort in half. And so Winchester will have a smaller cohort, and I don't know what's behind that. That is
just
the reason for the cohort. I don't want to get into a discussion of 3A.
Yeah. Can I just finish my thought? Maybe, so
Yes.
the ADU, North Main Street, and definitely Holton Cross, and also just a very big representation for MPIC, Master Plan Implementation Committee. So what is that? 3, 4.
It's 5
Holton Cross.
topics.
Yeah.
Great. The planning board is also represented in the tree working group. And if I'm not mistaken, Carrie, are you now the liaison to that group?
I am, yes.
And so perhaps you can find out from David Miller, head of the Conservation Commission, who's been spearheading that group, especially since Brian left.
Right.
I'm very grateful for his help. We all are. If he would like to have table space, real estate at our table, or if the Conservation Commission will have a table. And I see that
I'm sure they will. They usually do.
I see that John's hand is raised. Everybody okay if I unmute him? That good?
Yep.
Okay. Ask to unmute. I'm trying to do that. More.
He did it.
He did it. Okay. Hi, John. Oh, is he unmuted?
Yeah, no, I think I'm unmuted now.
Oh, good.
I was just going to elaborate a little bit to Nick Rosettos on what you referred to as the cohort community. The state is providing 2 categories of technical assistance. One of them is technical, or two types of community assistance. One of them is technical, and that's under that program, Jennifer Golson is working with Winchester.
Right.
They are also offering community engagement assistance. That's being coordinated through the Citizens Housing and Planning Association. And the lead person on that is a woman by the name of Lily Linke.
Right.
On that. And what Lily initially did was group Winchester with a number of other towns in there. She then decided that group was getting a little large, and so she proposed to kind of divide it into two. So I think Winchester is now grouped with 2 towns, and then there are essentially 2 meetings a month that Lily is organizing. These are Zoom meetings. Well, there's 3 things that Lily's doing. There's 2 Zoom meetings a month. One is with the cohort communities on that. And then the second one is a larger meeting of all of the MBTA communities that have asked for community assistance. So,
Or technical, just community citizen engagement assistance?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then the third thing that she's doing is she is willing to work with communities on an individual basis as time permits. So she can give us very specific directions, react to very specific ideas, provide feedback. She's also developing a list of resources that we can pick and choose from to utilize. And one of those lists that she's working on, that she's described in the last meeting, is, I would say, a list of talking points or messaging points that would help communicate with residents. And again, we could pick and choose from that list. We're not mandated to use it. But I've been part of a somewhat different working group that Lily has been part of. And so we've gotten to know each other pretty well. And she's very good on communication issues.
That's excellent to hear, John.
So the pitch that I've made to Diab and to Beth Rudolph is, there's no downside of working with her, and the upside is there's a set of potential resources that we can tap into.
Yes, indeed.
When is the next one of those meetings?
I think that the next meeting is she's scheduling it right now.
She sent out to me and Diab, and I don't know who else, one of those scheduling tools. You check on which ones you could make, which dates and times. And so we're waiting to hear back.
Yeah, and I have not filled out my response yet. She asked for responses by the end of the week. What she wants to do for the cohort is, and for her sanity, is to establish a regular meeting date, such as 3 o'clock on the second Thursday of the month.
Or whatever. And what's important to note is that the reason she wants a regular date is because the deadline for compliance is in December of 24. So we have a long and colorful journey ahead of us as we learn and comply.
Okay,
and it's going to take a lot of meetings.
That's encouraging that we have a little bit of time to come up with a solution that we like.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can send a copy of the email when the date is fixed, or maybe send it to the board.
Yeah, Diab or Sally can do that. I mean, I could do it too.
Okay. Yeah, maybe Sally.
To bring this back to Town Day, she may have some resources in terms of either handouts or boards that could be displayed that are generic enough to help define what 3A is all about.
Well, I'm happy to give Lily a call in the morning and ask her just to put on the table for further discussion what kinds of communications materials would be helpful and useful and appropriate for our Town Day table.
Yeah, Sally, I would suggest emailing her rather than telephoning.
Thank you. I will do so. It's a good recommendation. Thank you.
So that was my comment.
Well, I really appreciate you being
Thanks,
here.
John.
With the absence of a town planner and with the absence of Diab because he's out ill, we have, an 80% planning board here or something. So that's great, John. I appreciate that. And I will let the planning board know when the next cohort meeting is, or the next meeting for either of the two purposes that John described. Good.
Good.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks, Sally.
So going back to the agenda, I Ching?
Okay. Do you also want to talk about maybe images for Holton Cross? I'm not sure that we have some, I would love some attractive visuals for that, but it doesn't seem like there are really nice visuals for that
Well,
yet.
I think that MAPC, who's our consultant on that, may be able to help us with that. I think that we need to have a conversation as a board about the results of the last community meeting. And if I'm not mistaken, we're waiting for that poll to close and for the results of that meeting to be reported back to us.
Yeah, I wonder if Town Day would be too late to get more people engaged in the poll. It just doesn't seem like that PR was really great. I don't know how many people really participated.
So what I'm hearing is an excellent suggestion that we actually let people do like a QR code link to that survey and not close it until after Town Day.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay,
great.
so that's something I would want to talk to Josh about tomorrow. Hold on, I just have to make sure this isn't related to the planning board. No, it's not. Okay, good. So I will talk to Josh about that and find out how their timeline for reporting back to us on the program might work with us extending the deadline for the survey till after June 3rd.
Can somebody just say what day Town Day is?
June 3rd.
Yeah, thank you, I Ching.
Town Day is on June 3rd, and setup starts at 8 and Town Day opens at 9, and Town Day runs till 4, and everything has to be broom clean and look like nothing happened by 5. It would be great to have all hands on deck by the planning board on Town Day, because there's a lot of people that come through the town center on Town Day, and we have a lot of topics on the table, and it would be great to have everybody be there. Obviously, none of us can be there the whole day because that's positively exhausting. So maybe we can look at our calendars, and when we next discuss it, we can think about the concept of overlapping shifts or something, and also help with the setup and help with the knockdown. So those are the requests with regards to staffing. And then I very much like I Ching's list of the 5 major things that are in front of the board, which is the ADU bylaw, North Main Street corridor revitalization status, 3A progress, the analysis of land use in Holton Swanton Cross, the IL district, and the state of affairs for MIPC. And I do see that we have with us today Rich Rowan, who is, dare I say, the de facto chair. I don't know, Rich, if you want to talk about what you, I just made it that you can unmute yourself.
I did too, so maybe I double unmuted him. So I'm doing it again.
Okay, good, thank you. And Rich, if you wanted to chime in with your ideas and aspirations for our presence at a Town Day.
Well, as you know, I think in the absence of having a town planner, recruiting for the MPIC has been problematic. And I think that the Town Day table that the planning board is planning on, it would be a good place, I think, to try to make contact with some new people who would like to get involved on the MPIC. Just use it as a recruiting tool, basically.
So that's great. I like that idea very much. And so we can talk in more detail, and you can also discuss it with the 2 other members of the MPIC that we do have in place right now.
Right, right.
And
I think if we have have some copies of the master plan and of the action and the master plan action plan pamphlets to show to the community, and just have the few members that we do have of the MPIC who have been appointed right now present to just talk it up with the community, try to get
Great.
more people involved.
Yes. That would be great. So looking at the calendar, it's April 25th and Town Day is like, what, 6 weeks away? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks away.
Yep.
So that means that we need to be working steadily, making progress every day. So I'm not sure that I know how to, what, is it possible that people on the board would, well, the North Main Street materials are going to come from Foreman Place. The 3A materials, we're going to get some help from Lily. The survey materials, we're going to get some help from MAPC. The ADU materials, we're going to finalize on Friday. And we will be able to have copies of both the brochure and the FAQs, Iching, is that correct?
Yeah, if you guys could, maybe we could designate somebody from the board to each sort of thing so that they can make
That'd be
sure that
great.
things get done.
So volunteers.
I'll do ADU.
Okay, thank you, Iching.
Whatever you want help with, I'll do any of it. It's all kind of new to me.
So I think that it would be great to have you reach out to the MAPC and let them know about our question about, can we extend the deadline of the survey and how does that impact? And
Okay, great.
and you can just give me a call. We can share contact information on Josh.
Great.
I guess I could reach out to Foreign Place, see what they.
Okay.
I know I was going to say that I like what they've given us already, and they've some of the graphics, but I guess I can follow up with them.
Well, that would be great, Nick. And what we can do before you do that is let's just sit down together and figure out what's the latest thing that they've given us.
Okay.
So the thing that's happening with the North Main Street, and that's actually the next agenda item, is that they have given us models for what they call test fits, developing various parcels of land on each side of North Main Street in GBD2, which is closer to Skillings, and GBD3, which is closer to Woburn. And those test fits translate into density. And I think that they are not doing any further work until we give them feedback on what we imagine would be in the best interest of the town and would garner the most support from the town when we bring the rezoning of North Main Street to town meeting in a year from now, in spring of 24. And so working with Foreman Place, it's John, and I'm losing the other name.
Michael.
Anyway, Michael, I think. Yeah, working with the team from Foreman Place to identify materials that can be used, but that's going to depend on us doing the work of looking at each of the models in detail. And we might have so little time and so much work that we might need to schedule a meeting just for that. But what I can do is find out from Diab if he thinks we need a special meeting, or we can put it in one of the meetings, either May 9th or the one that's after May 9th. I wonder what that is. Window. I don't know what the, let me just.
Well, I mean, I think, I mean, certainly it would be nice to have that done. Sure. I mean, I don't know that we need to rush that. I mean,
Well, except that we only have 5 weeks to town day.
right, but we would give Town Day what we have.
Yeah, I wonder if
I don't think
people
we should
walking
be.
by, not exposed to the study and seeing, buildings in the test pits, that would be a kind of a like, whoa.
It would be
what's going on?
alarming to people. because-
Right, it doesn't have its context.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think, some of the things that they had shown us, like a streetscape of what, what is it called?
complete
Smart
streetscape,
What was it? Smart streets? What is it called?
complete streets,
Complete
smart
street,
streets.
thank you. That kind of a thing next to what exists is a really kind of exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have material from them that
Yeah.
We
is
have plenty of
compelling and it
information
looks
about the
great.
Yeah.
But laying it out in the individual lots, I think would scare people off.
I think
Right.
it would, and I don't think that we're ready to present that because we haven't even had a
No.
deep dive conversation amongst
Right.
ourselves.
Right.
It keeps getting bumped off the agenda because of so
Right.
much other projects coming to the board. So at a minimum, that's a good suggestion, I Ching and Nick, that we can use the complete streets presentations that they've given us. And
Yeah.
even if they're not as handouts, they're just as nice big posters.
Yeah, and
Right, they're
similar to
colored,
what,
right.
I'm sorry. Similar to
Go
what Holton Cross was doing, I wonder if this was in the scope of Foreman Place's work of whether or not they were doing some community engagement kind of work, right? That they could put in some, what do you want to see on Main Street? Like a Post-it note, a kind of engagement, that kind of a thing. And I don't think that was part of their scope. But this would be a good opportunity for us to get that input from people, just like little Post-its, like what would you want to see coming between, Skillings and
So like an interactive
Yeah,
activity.
I think
at
that
the
would be
booth.
Yeah, we
kind of
did that with the
thing.
master plan where we had, like people stuck something to the board. Like, what would you, like give them options or something like
Yeah.
open space, shop, housing, or give them
Right.
a limited number,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
It's a
and
pocket park.
put like little sticky notes.
Mhm.
I would love to have I Ching and Carrie work together. Carrie, because of your excellent background, successfully being part of the leadership team for the master plan, and I Ching, because of your design skills and your ability, not only graphic design, but street design. It would be great to have you partner on
Something interactive, like a fun thing.
something
for
interactive.
people.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So let us consider that an action item
So
for,
for both studies, I mean, we kind of are searching for that, and I wonder if it's a little bit too busy to do both, or if we should just focus on MBTA 3A kind of and Main Street.
people will ask what's up with North Main
Yeah,
Street.
maybe we could
People
have the
will ask
entire
what's
map
up with the IL
Of
district.
Winchester, and then like hyper focus on the two regions that we're looking at. Like, what do you want
North
to
Main
see?
Street and IL.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Well,
I
the other
love to
thing,
get that.
the other thing that's happening is that in the budget process, there is repeatedly suggestions that our budget be cut in the professional services area and that we slow down our progress on the two area studies that we're doing, North Main and IL. And I need to know how that's going. We all need to know how that's going to fall out. Because we need to be able to communicate to the members of our community what our timeline is for those projects. So in principle, I like what you're saying. I think in reality, we should be able to communicate that to people about 5 different topics and let them come over and express their interest in each. I don't think we want to narrow it because people are going to ask. So what I have is that for the ADU bylaw passing, which as we all know now, the Attorney General signed it into law. So that's wonderful. And I Ching is working with, as you said, with Al and helping finish up the brochure. We will have our materials ready and approved on Friday. So that won't be a problem getting those ready for Town Day. And on the North Main Street one, Nick, I'm happy to have you reach out to Foreman Place. Let's have a pre-meeting just so we make sure that the materials that you're discussing with them are all available to you. And
Oh,
then
sure.
on 3A, I'm happy to reach out to Lily and ask her what kinds of citizen engagement and communications materials might be available by then that we can do. I mean, there's a number of decisions to make, so we don't really know what we're doing yet. And those decisions haven't been formulated, so they haven't been brought to the board yet, but they will be, maybe by town day, maybe not. And then for the MAPC, it would be great, Rich, to have you and I mean, not the MAPC.
MPIC.
Oh, right. Yes, for the MPIC, to have Rich, you have something that you all feel is a productive way of communicating and recruiting. Your goal is recruitment. And then
Right.
I didn't, yeah. And then for IL, I can talk to, or did somebody already say they were going to talk to Josh? Or did I say that?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna email Josh.
Okay, that's great, great.
And
So,
Sally, if I may
yes.
interrupt quickly for a second.
Yes.
In terms of the MPIC, if you remember, we had skipped the April meeting with the upcoming presentations and work that the board needed to do on for town meeting. And so I think it would be good if we could try to schedule an MPIC meeting for sometime in May to talk about these items and talk about town day.
Okay, so
Sometime after town meeting is completed and Diab is
feeling a
hopefully
little better.
well, feeling better, and you'll have more time hopefully.
Right, so that's definitely something that we will do, is we will schedule an MPIC meeting as soon as we can. And just confirm for me, it's Sue Carney and Dylan Ketterer
Yes,
and you,
yes,
who are the official members of the Master Plan Implementation Committee right now.
right. And Dylan being the youth member.
Yes, and
I believe at our last, well, no. Oh, wait.
can you take the lead on scheduling that, and then we can get
Okay, I will do
support
that.
from our town hall team on getting it posted?
I will look into that tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, and then I really like the idea of having you all three and whoever else you can encourage to come to your
Corral.
meeting. Yeah, corral, that's the word. Coming up with the best way of recruiting people to this, and we will have copies.
Okay,
Great, and so I will appreciate everybody looking at their calendars and telling me how much time they have available to support this major communications opportunity on Saturday, June 3rd. Okay. So any other discussion about town meeting planning? I mean, town day planning? No? Okay. So we talked a bit about North Main Street. We know what the status is now. And I think it will be great, Nick, to have you reach out and find out about materials for the streetscape part of their presentations. And hopefully we will have more, we will have had a meeting before Town Day about the test fits that they presented. And that will guide what other messaging we have at the booth on Town Day. So segueing into the 3A thing, the way that 3A works is that we need a specified, we need to zone multifamily by right in a specified number of acres and a specified number of units in town. And when I say specified, it's been elaborately calculated for us by I guess it's the DHCD, the people who are putting through the 3A. I'm a little unclear because I have never had to figure it out yet, what the state level organization is for this project. Um, um, so there is a memo that I could try to pull up. I was trying to find it earlier that shows models. Oh, so let me finish what I was saying about the acres. So it's a specified number of acres that we need to zone as multifamily by right, and it's a specified number of units that need to be able to be built in that land. And 50% of the acres need to be within a half mile of the Winchester Center commuter rail station, and 50% of the units need to be within a half mile. And I think that the number of units total is like, oh wait, maybe I have it right here. Multi-unit capacity. Okay, I think the total required is 1,220 units have to be, of which 610 need to be within a half mile. And so what we understand from our submittal in December, that Brian Manter and Brian Zakeli worked very hard to get to the state. It was a critical deadline to show a good faith effort towards meeting the December 24 deadline, is that we are pretty darn close, but we have some rezoning to do. That is not a panic alert. That is a, oh, thank goodness, let's just focus on the work to be done. Because there are other towns that are not in a good existing conditions state. So the other 50% need to be, the other 50% of the acres and the other 50% of the units need to be in contiguous chunks of 5 acres of land. And the overlap between the 3A guidelines and our North Main Street work is that the lower part of GBD2 from Skillings Road to Clark Street is within a half mile of the MBTA station, the commuter rail station at Winchester Center. So that means that depending on the test fits and depending on our conversation, we can potentially zone for sufficient density there and elsewhere within the half mile to achieve the 610 units. And I don't know how many units we already have. So this is why nothing's been brought to the planning board yet, because we're still just doing data collection, if you will. The other place that is a minimum, it meets the minimum of 5 acres, is the possibility of zoning 5 acres at Parkview. We don't have to do anything at Parkview. We simply zone it as available. Because it's a contiguous 5 acres that we could zone as multifamily. Those models, plus or minus, plus or minus, plus or minus, is what I guess it's Beverly at JM Goldson is working on. They're working on proceeding with modeling 3 scenarios.
No, I know that we have three free scenarios.
That's right. The center
Are we gonna use up all 3 of those right away, or are we gonna save one for after we discuss?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by use. I think we're going to consider all the data that is available, and including all the work that Brian Manter did to do GIS data for every parcel.
Right, but I guess what I'd like to do is be able to play with the maps, because that's where we're going to get any kind of relief we might be looking for in terms of, where stuff is going.
Well, that's exactly what JM Goldson is doing right now with the data that Brian Manter and Brian Zakeli submitted. They created a compliant.
Right, I'm glad that they're doing it. But
Nick, hold on. They filled out a compliance model spreadsheet. And when I say that the spreadsheet was like this wide, I'm meaning that on a computer screen, that's how much you would scroll to see the whole thing.
So
okay?
we have taken that one more step. I don't know the scenarios that you're talking about. I think that's before me. But I think Nick is curious about the Xing out of the property. You know, we had talked about sort of like drawing a map where we sort of tried to preserve certain parcels.
Right.
So they're working through that process, and essentially it will all be that. I think they're ultimately taking 8.7 acres from Parkview, and nothing is coming out of the center business. There's 1.5 acres coming from the center business district that I think is already properly zoned, and then the 10.5 acres will come from GBD2.
And then the Parkview I had was 8.5, not 8.7.
The last one I have, but I mean, I don't know. I think we need 20 acres and we're at 20.7. So I think we actually.
Here's what I have on this document from Beverly. The total required acreage for Winchester for multifamily housing as of right, and that means first floor residential, is 37. The minimum number of acres that would be within a half mile would be half of that, which is 18.5. So that brings relevance to what you were just saying, Carrie.
So we can actually take 2 acres back from this.
Right.
I don't know how Parkview falls into that.
And then the number of units is 1,220 total. Half of that within a half mile is 610. And the density, the number of dwelling units per acre is also specified by the MBTA 3A legislation. And in the CBD, so you take the average of the closest in district, the half mile, and the density of any other, those contiguous chunks of 5 acres that we have. And it has to average 15 dwelling units per acre. But the density in the first half mile has to be higher. And she's put an estimate on this for 55 dwelling units per acre. I don't know how to translate that into CBD inkling, but Carrie, what you were just saying sounds right, that
I think the as-built, because they're including Wedgwood, and I think Wedgwood's as-built is actually denser than that.
You're right, they are. That's exactly right. They're rolling that multifamily housing into.
Wait, Wedgwood is included, but Wedge Pond is not. Is that right?
Wedge Pond is a residential neighborhood behind Wedge.
Right.
View. I don't think I ever knew it was called that.
Similar, yeah. Okay.
So you can hear that we're all sort of reaching at straws, threads of information, because it's an incredibly complex topic. Diab's been to all the meetings. I've been to some of the meetings. Brian was attending all of them. Brian's not here anymore. So it's really challenging. And as Carrie noted in her documentation from our last meeting, 3A compliance leadership is something that we will require from our interim town planner. When I say leadership,
also, I don't know if we should note this somewhere in the interim planner description, but we were clear in the meeting that those should not be policy decisions. They should be, it should be mostly technical support. I mostly mentioned because we want to make sure we don't use the interim, like sort of kick the can of getting a planner down the road.
That the interim
that's
town
a
planner
good point, Carrie, that they should be technical support and not policy decisions.
is not a policy advisor. They are technical support for all of our major everythings for the whole board. So that is the discussion of the overlap of 3A and our North Main Street revitalization and rezoning project. So tell me more questions. Ask me more questions and maybe we can collectively answer them.
Well, I guess one avenue of play, as I guess how I describe it was where the buildings or where the zoning for the buildings is going to be, and then the other avenue, which I think is less promising as a kind of an approach or solution, is having design guidelines. I'm a little bit, I mean, since it's all by right, that's very discouraging for design guidelines. But, and I think it was either you or Diab that said there was a pile of regs to be gone through.
There was a pile of what to go through, I'm sorry?
Regarding what kind of design guidelines we might be able to use, given the fact that these are all by right zoning. But it's probably something that we would talk about as a board, what kind of design guidelines we would
Right,
recommend.
and the question that you've raised is an interesting one. If something is by right, do design guidelines apply?
Well, I don't think design guidelines are very helpful, but I thought it was thrown out that you could have design guidelines with a by right if they weren't, if they were specific enough, or if there were certain criteria applied to them. So it seems like it's something that we should go
Well,
through.
it's
the
definitely
motions
on the
and do.
table. Yes.
Right.
No, so Nick, I see that John's hand is raised. John, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah. I just want to again address Nick. We should have coffee. We should have coffee together. The lead agency for this is the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, commonly known as DHCD. One of the things they're giving a lot of attention to, and I haven't seen anything recently, but it's a question that comes up, is the definition of as of right or by right, and what they're looking at is the kind of site plan review that can be conducted, and everyone wants to conduct site plan review. It won't be a special permit, but the site plan review will give the town a lot of, I would say, influence, control over what gets built. And my understanding is that certainly the town could develop design guidelines. But the last meeting I was in, which was a little while ago, all of those details had not yet been defined. Now, the other thing that I just want to throw out, a number of communities are looking at, and that Lexington did, is that lots and lots of people want commercial development on the first floor. That under the law, that cannot be required. But what some towns are doing is creating an incentive, whereas if you put commercial development or retail on the first floor, then you can build an additional floor in heights. So
Interesting.
One of the things that's being talked about is what are the options for introducing retail and commercial development in some of these locations. So I think
right. And John, I also understand that the exercise that Carrie took a stab at was acknowledged by our cohort consultants as an option, that we could exempt specific buildings in the Center Business District as not being required to be first floor residential. John, is that right?
I haven't heard that language.
Okay, so, but I do know that Diab and Carrie at the suggestion of our consultant, our 3A consultant,
Okay.
did come up with just a stab.
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
sure
dark.
that question will come up. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah.
And it may be that if the existing zoning, if in the central business district, we could build on existing zoning, and
There's an overlay.
the statement that has been made is that you cannot require commercial development on the first floor, but you can create incentives whereby that's permitted.
So nothing, so the exclusions that we made when we started sort of Xing out the map and making the recommendation for where we would zone multifamily commercial was to specifically preserve kind of that beloved downtown area that includes, you know, Thompson Street and Mount Vernon and Main and and everything that already functions really well in our community as first floor commercial. It doesn't say there's no housing allowed above it, but the buildings that are then going to be required to be all multifamily, including the first floor, would be sort of a next section at the you know, sort of the downtown end of GBD2. And then it could open up again if we do North Main as first floor, then we'd have kind of this nice, you know, walkable first floor commercial, all residential, walkable first floor commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But because they have to be contiguous, you have to sort of choose 5 acres in a row where you can go to the first floor with housing. That's part of the rules. So that was sort of like what I was sort of grabbing for. We're like, what are the biggest, you know, single parcels we can turn over that would create a neighborhood where we go to the first floor with housing, but then they can easily walk to an area that preserves first floor commercial.
I mean, the other thing that Jen Golson and Beverly have said, and others have said as well, there's a lot of interest in communities in creating an overlay district, you know, accomplishing the target zoning through use of an overlay district. So that's probably too technical to get into on town day, but I mean, that's one of the design decisions that that people will look at, and that Jen Golson, I know, is looking at and will have input on.
Mm-hmm.
That's really helpful, John. Thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. Thanks. And Carrie, your comments, they were encouraging.
I think, Nick, that what I'm hearing in your questions is a concern that this is going to end up a runaway program that will destroy the MBTA communities with all of these requirements. And I do not believe that that is how it's playing out in Winchester.
Right, and also
just play out that way.
Just the idea that we can have some discussion and input, like not have it handed from on high and this is it, and we're gonna, this is the final.
That's why they're doing 3 scenarios. It's very difficult to come up with models that meet the compliance model. Like if we could come up with 73 different models, we could narrow it down to 20 and then narrow it down to 10 and 5 and 1. Right now, we're starting with only 3 ways that anybody's been able to find that we could do zoning that would achieve compliance.
Right, but I think that if those aren't satisfactory, we have to discuss them. I think that's
right. That's right. I mean, they think that we can do it with one of these 3 ways, and that's what they're working out now because they have an understanding of the requirements relative to low battery. The compliance model much better than I do anyway. Carrie, sounds like you managed to get more up to speed. I'm really happy that you.
I mean, Jen Golston, I knew from the master plan. I don't know Beverly, but I think she really has a good grasp on the town. I mean, she met a lot of people. She heard a lot of what we said. I know she's not sort of looking to either pack in a bunch of housing into town or sort of neglect the small businesses that we're all really fond of. So, you know, we're trying to grab the minimum number of acres where we can. And I think she'll come up with.
Brian Matt could weigh in on this as well, but the conclusions that Diab, Brian Zacchelli and I came to back during November and December as the action plan was being put together is that Winchester, and Sally, you alluded to this earlier, Winchester is in relatively good shape compared to the majority of other communities. And that, you know, it's common to have a fear that the big bad state will come in and impose some, you know, undesirable requirements on us. I think that the DHCD people have been working enormously intensively. CHAPA is working with them. That's the last thing that anyone wants. And so I think they really want to come up with approaches that work in each community, recognizing that Winchester is very different than Lexington. It's very different than Arlington. It's very different than Woburn. And that the combination of North Main Street and the Central Business District, we can almost get to the target. And then it sounds like, they're looking at some other areas like Parkview and whatever that Wedge Pond development is called,
Right.
Wedgeview, to kind of help out. One of the questions that had been talked about is how far up North Main Street you can go, or you would need to go. And there was a trade-off between having denser development on the lower part of North Main Street, or if you go with low density there, then you might extend a little bit further north.
With
Mhm.
spreading that density out. But no matter what, there's the half-mile requirement, which takes us to Clark.
Yeah. No, I think that,
Right.
so I think again, to reinforce what Sally said, the idea of looking at, a small number of options, 2 or 3, not 20, is going to enable them to, will be very instructive and
Mhm.
give people a good handle on, which direction we want to go, or the planning board wants to go.
Right.
It sounds to me too that Nick, you're wanting to really get engaged and wanting to see what the negotiation points are and understand the rules. And so if possible to, I know there's like a 3-member sort of thing going on, but they're open to the public, right? These meetings are, so.
Yeah. So I'm definitely interested. And I
Yeah,
think,
so that you
Sally,
can ease some of your fears or, know
I
what
think it
the
would actually. I think it would help me
limits are.
to yeah, it would help me to alleviate the fears, as you say. Just to right. I agree, and I would like to know when those meetings are.
Right, and we've already said that as soon as that meeting is scheduled, we will let the planning board know. She's working on that now.
Yeah, I
Really
think all of
is.
us should start getting engaged and understanding where the limits are and borders are, so that we're not so in the dark, going forward with sort of a bigger, open-hearted, way.
Right. It would be nice for me, I guess, to speak for myself, to get engaged to the point where I can confidently get behind something and feel good about it.
Right.
Well, I think
And,
what will happen
you
is
know-
that Jennifer Goldson and Beverly, I don't know Beverly's last name, will have a series of working group meetings, and those certainly can. I just see no reason why all of the planning board members cannot be involved in those discussions.
I will say that most of the people that were, all the people that were in the last cohort meeting that I went to were all town employees. They were all planning department employees. And so Winchester was the only town in the meeting that had board members.
Right, because we don't have an employee right now.
That would be correct.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to say is, I Ching, you did a very nice thing at the first part of our discussion. You brought up the 3A website where all the information is posted. And
Yeah,
I would like people to take the time to do a deep dive investigation of this website so that they understand the spirit and the model, and then we can get more information about the specific requirements for Winchester that I summarized earlier in the conversation, and I can repeat if you want me to. But this
And I
is
do-
a good place.
I do think that, I'm sorry, Sally.
So go ahead.
I also think that, sort of, I know we're really low on local news, but the sort of reading up on the Globe and how any sort of local news sources that you guys take on, I think those would be really helpful, just to be understanding what the other communities around us are doing, including Lexington, just, completely approved theirs already at 1 year ahead. So.
What Yiching is referring to is Lexington completed their entire rezoning actually a year and 6 months or a year and 8 months ahead of time, and they did it with more acreage within a half mile and beyond with the 5 acres of, chunks of land, then was required. So they get the first and highest gold star for that. So
Sally, let me just make I mean, I think this is a very good website. It's definitely worthwhile looking at. You need to be well rested. You need to be awake. And the more you get into the weeds, some of this stuff requires looking at 2, 3, and 4 times. So it's not necessarily easy, but they've done a pretty good job, a very good job of describing the overall structure. I wanted to ask Brian if I've made any huge errors in what I've been saying, because you and Brian Kelly work very closely on the action plan.
and I would ask the same question, John. Thank you.
Yeah, John, everything you said, to my understanding, is accurate.
It's exceedingly complex, and it met a huge amount of resistance in the Commonwealth when as it's been rolled out. There's been numerous revisions to the models and the compliance rules as those complaints have been, processed and responded to. So this has been a complicated and moving target. So I say to anyone who feels that the planning board hasn't been communicating well about this.
You guys have been communicating. It's just a lot of stuff.
That is what I was going to say. Yes. Thank you.
What one other warning I might just throw in is that, and this has been talked about in some of the meetings, this is all getting a fair amount of media and press coverage. And I was surprised that the Lexington work got as much coverage in the Boston Globe as it did.
Mm-hmm.
The Globe and some of the other coverages have tended to focus in on the negatives and a small number of towns that continue to actively resist this. And Woburn is one of the ones that is not terribly enthusiastic in there. I think the number of communities that submitted action plans, I don't know if was it 179, 175? There was only 1 or 2 holdouts. And so people need to be careful in not relying too much on the print media to kind of draw conclusions as to what's going on overall.
Right.
And again, the various state agencies have been monitoring this very, very carefully and in some of their meetings, they go out of their way to kind of correct any misimpressions that are being given by some of the press.
That's
Mhm.
fair. Thank you for that.
That's really helpful, John. And going back to Woburn for a second, are they intending to comply?
Brian, have you heard anything?
Yeah.
No, I mean, initially, I think there's a disagreement in Woburn. Initially, they said they weren't going to comply. There was some support in thinking that, they will comply. But I'm not up to speed on what Woburn is doing.
Right, and we don't want to speak for them. I do know that there's at least one town in Massachusetts that did not meet the deadline that Brian Manter and Brian Zakeli made it possible for Winchester to meet of December 31st of 2022 with our compliance plan. And that one community had been awarded a grant that was rescinded because they missed that deadline. And if I'm not mistaken about that, and that is not something that we would want to have happen to our town. And I don't think it will, A, because we're working on it, and B, because we know that it's possible to achieve.
Yeah, no, Diob's comments last night at town meeting, I think were accurate. Some people felt, well, the state will never enforce this. But DHCD has said they intend to enforce it. They are enforcing it. The Attorney General has said it's going to be enforced. At the same time, I think DHCD wants to be flexible and accommodating and reasonable. So they don't want to be heavy-handed. So if Winchester is positive and attempting, that's going to help us down the road.
Yeah, I want to just add to that. I think that's one of the other key things is that we want to stay in communication with the state in a positive way. If it means, if we're almost there, we should tell them that. We tell them what our problems are and getting there and being upfront.
Right.
Just how you would relate to a negotiation partner that you want to be on your side.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure J.M. Goldson is working with other communities in there. So she's, we want to keep her on our side.
And you need to know that J.M. Goldson, we're really blessed to have that team as one of our 3A advisors because they're so deeply familiar with our community.
Well, and they know the 3A process.
Right. We have a key ally.
Yeah. No, I mean, Brian Zacchelli was had pretty good relationships with both Mass Housing Partnership and DHCD in there. I know a lot of those people and have worked with a lot of those people for a number of years. So I think, they're all trying to be reasonable and have good outreach.
Right. So that's as much as I can share. And John, I'm so grateful, and Carrie too, to have you adding your little pieces of information to this conversation, so that we can all understand that it's a moving target and with deadlines. Oh, so going back to the December 2024, the plan for the planning board is to present to spring town meeting in 24, the zoning bylaws, including the design guidelines for the rezoned areas. And the reason we're doing it in the spring, even though the done deal, the voted bylaws aren't due until December, is because if we need to bring it back to fall town meeting, we will have a chance to do so. But it does mean that we have to employ our best communications skills as we draft the bylaws and the guidelines, and as we roll them out to our community for their understanding. And that's why we're doing spring. So we have less than a year. Great. I Ching, is there anything else on the agenda? And does anybody else want to discuss further any of the topics that we talked about tonight?
Well, we did want to talk about the chair situation.
Okay.
But I think we covered most everything here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered what we set out to.
So did you want to say anything else about that, I Ching?
Oh, no, I just want to note that we wanted to continue that conversation because it was too short a time in the updates.
Well, so what Diab said to me about on the phone before, when he said he's way too ill to come to this meeting, was he feels really badly about the way that town meeting occurred last night, that our two articles failed. And he, as I said, asked me to ask the board if they think that a different chair would have more luck in fall town meeting and in spring 24 town meeting. We have some very critical bylaw changes to lead the town through. And that's all I can say. I just,
Well, maybe we can talk about what happened.
What bylaw changes are you referring
Bylaws.
to?
so let me tell you, if I can find it on my computer, because I try to keep track of them because my brain seems to get smaller as I get older. I don't know if that's happened to anybody else. Open recent, hold on. Okay, so this is for instance, okay? So for instance, for the fall, we have a person who has asked to open a dog grooming studio in town, and we would be best to approach it as an addition to a use table that would require a vote. So that's a good thing to have to explain. Another one is in section 4.5, that is the preservation waiver for natural and historic resources, that they would waive specific aspects of the table of dimensions. And this is what was proposed at 88 Harvard, and I think it's also under discussion at 19 Verplast, is that the definition of natural resources needs to be carefully crafted, because I don't believe it's present. And there is, I think, also a need to fix one piece of language in the ADU bylaw, and the ADU working group is aware of that. And it has to do with an age discrepancy between three of the agencies that define elderly in Massachusetts. And then there's some discussion that we need to explore about the question of the maximum height of residential and other buildings in town. And that would just be for the fall. And then when we get to the spring, it's the North Main Street, including an updated table of uses, and it's 3A zoning. And the fall town meeting of 24, as far as I know, the idea is that we would be exploring the rezoning of the IL areas, the Holton Swanton Cross thing. So that's playing out in a different timetable because it started later and we're just in the first phase of that. So, and then, you know, I saw the Arlington town meeting warrant. There's 85 articles. And many of them are brought by residents of the town using the procedures that provide for that to happen. We don't have 85 articles in our town meetings. We have what, 30? I have to look at the thing. But it is to say that it's possible to use town meeting to address key needs as identified by a critical mass of people or a board.
I guess I would just wanted to say that with regard to these initiatives, the zoning initiatives, I think I'm kind of looking forward to a year where maybe we can work hard at coming up with these initiatives that we can all get behind and feel good about. And I think we need to decide as a group which ones, you know, we want to proceed with. And I felt a little bit in the past that they've sort of been just handed down, that this is what we need to do and this is why. And you know, so I just wanted to make that comment that that we need to be clear on, if, you know, why are we making the zoning change? Do we want to make the zoning change? And if so, then we can get behind it.
So in the case of 3A,
Well, 3A goes without saying. I mean, that's but I'm talking
correct.
about the little ones. I'm talking about the you know, the you know, well, anyway, that was just.
I mean,
like,
all of them are important, and some of them are responding to current circumstances, and some of them are more proactive in their origin. And I absolutely agree that the planning board should decide on, because it's a lot of work to bring something to town meeting, and that we should decide after this spring town meeting what the, let me call it, less mandatory ones that we would be working on.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of problems with our zoning bylaw, and everybody knows that. And it takes a focused effort to choose the right modifications to have not only a successful outcome, but the most positively impactful outcome. It's not
Right.
easy.
And we do have a limited amount of political capital to spend in some ways.
That's right. That's right. And we don't have a town planner.
Right. So
Kind of
we,
a-
I think
kind
we,
of a problem.
right, Nick, we should definitely identify the things that are meaningful to as many of us as possible, and has potential passage through town meeting as well. I think just gauging the political sort of landscape of town too, to figure out how to get it through, to get the votes, to get it done. It is really painful to keep doing this without.
Yeah. I Ching worked really hard on the half story. And
I mean, I did, because it was such a visual thing, and I thought that it really needed to have that visual to storytell. And I think that maybe that was part of the thing about these two as well. The Article 5 was so technical, and we were dependent so much on the legal knowledge, and so many of us weren't lawyers, and so
Yeah,
I
it's
think
difficult for us to have a role in it.
that confusion really, I sowed doubt in a lot of people. So
Although
Nick,
one thing
I
I
wanna-
would say about 355 is that we discussed it, and from the beginning of the months that we discussed it, there were no changes in our approach. And
I
I'm
would say
wondering if
that's
that's the way it
true.
should have been, or if we should have worked harder to see what the problems are from the other side and taken a proactive, even if they weren't forthcoming, maybe we could have figured out what their problem was and made more of an effort to have a modification. It almost felt like, okay, this is what was given to us, several months ago, and it's in the exact same form now. And so that means that we didn't really have there wasn't any give and take, and there wasn't any real input. And maybe on 355, it would have been hard anyway, because none of us are lawyers. But I would note that there were no changes in the approach from the beginning to the end, which kind of means that we didn't really have an input in a way.
My thought on that is that our input was that decision of whether or not to stay the course and figure out how to adjust the policy to support that, or to begin to change it so that we can allow we can make it so that it's clear for variances. Because even from yesterday's presentation, I wasn't clear who the two people at fraction were.
Right.
Until the
Well,
very
that's,
end.
yeah. I mean,
People were guessing, was it the planning board? Was it the select board? It was definitely the ZBA, but it was actually, the building department and the ZBA. Those were the
Right.
two that were disagreeing. And so that wasn't even clear. And I think that was problematic for a lot of people, thinking that it was such a political thing, but it is a kind of a, covering our butts about this and
right.
making sure that the town doesn't get sued when there are two
Right.
very permit granting authorities disagreeing about the language.
Right.
That was
That's
a
a good
big
point.
driver.
That's
That
a
was a
good
big
point.
driver, Nick, on why 355 came to town meeting, is because it was identified that there was a disagreement of the interpretation of the language that was written in 2009 vis-a-vis the 2014 court case. And the court case specifically resulted in a requirement that our language be more specific. And Attorney Tallerman put forth language that in his professional opinion, I think would have done that.
I mean,
So
obviously,
it's not like,
it wasn't.
it's not like
I mean,
there was like,
maybe there's a way to approach it so that address give relief to homeowners for small issues, but also give protection to abutters for large projects.
Well, and I want to say that that's built into the language of the zoning bylaw, that in a special permit, the special permit granting authority is reviewing every special permit application against our special permit criteria that are in our zoning laws. And they always reserve the right to determine that the level of detriment to
Mhm.
the neighborhood is too great.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, I did notice that, I mean, I guess, I don't know what the next steps on this are, but I did notice that you're defending the position, which I guess is your right and prerogative, but it, you know, it doesn't, it might be helpful to have the ability to have discussion
right.
that
So you
might
would want
think
to have a
outside of that
discussion.
box,
So the discussion would be about whether it's a good thing or not a
or,
good thing.
or maybe how to address more specifically the concerns of the other side, so that there's at least some consensus on what's happening, and maybe if there are concerns about the you know, the abutters, you know, the projects being too big, that can be addressed in a more nuanced way. Maybe we need more change than just a simple change, but again, I mean, that would require more meetings with council, and it would also require us bringing in the devil's advocate, you know, faction early on in the process, so that we can address the concerns, you know, well in advance of having to argue it on the floor of a town meeting. I mean, again, I think this is kind of a special case because none of us are really conversant in the language of what it is. I mean, as
But that's
non-attorneys.
not true either. I feel like we got really deep into the language. I think
Well,
Sally
okay.
and Diab especially really worked it out and try to really understand what was at stake here.
Right. No, I didn't mean it in that regard. I just, I think it's hard for many people to get their arms around it. I didn't mean that
Sure.
we didn't work hard.
No, yes, but I thought that our process was fairly clear, and from the beginning, we knew that this was going to be very confusing.
Yeah.
It was confusing even within this board, but I do think that, you know, what Dia presented was as clear as could be. But in some ways, I think, you know, from our interview with Kelly Lenema too, I was struck by how she talked about the storytelling part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at town meeting, it's a storytelling time.
Right.
And I think maybe Diab laid it out really even keeled in some ways. Like he really like laid out the thing without telling the backstory or like sort of the juicy parts of it. In that, look, I don't know. It was a little bit too it wasn't a narrative enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I
should
think
also say, Nick, is I understand that the zoning board of appeals was intending to present their views at town meeting, and they took a vote on it, and they included 4 members, and it was evenly divided. And so the chair, as I understand it, decided to not present their views at town meeting. I don't know if I have that entirely right, so I have to put that caveat out there. But they were at one point intending to present their view because, as Diab said, it puts the town at risk when a building commissioner and a special permit granting authority, the zoning board of appeals, aren't on the same footing.
Well, they should be. I mean, I guess with the reality of what's on the ground now is maybe there should be a conversation between those two groups, but that's a different story.
It is. So I think that I have to say that just as the vice chair, I've been trying to help Diab stay on top of absolutely everything that's been going on since Brian left. And Suzanne has been an incredible help with keeping our meetings posted on time with agendas to comply with open meeting law. And these are all things that the town planner does as a matter of just part of their job. And so if things are running rough right now, in terms of lack of communication, or we missed the deadline to post a meeting, Diab and I are working as hard as possible to prevent those from happening. And we're doing so in the spirit of the best interests of the town and gratitude to the planning board for all of us serving.
Yeah, and that's really appreciated. I don't have any issues with how these things are run in that at all. And in fact, even this meeting feels a little more organic to me in a way. It's kind of funny that it seems like the discussion is just a bit more organic and free flowing in a good way.
Well, that's because we have enough time because we canceled a public hearing and we dispatched quickly with town meeting business, and we took a deep dive into 3A, which might not have been a good idea if it gives people enough information to make misunderstandings, but it's part of the process. So
I thought that was helpful. I thought we had a very positive discussion, and it was and discussion was allowed to happen, which I thought was good. Even the negative, even the parts that maybe challenge what's going on to some degree, but I thought it was all supportive and again, just kind of a natural flow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I Ching, what does the agenda look like from here?
Are we done talking about
I think we might be done.
I think
well,
so.
are
too.
we talking about how to proceed for the next, town meeting for fall? Should we, what are you?
Well, your suggestion is a good one. If it was you or Nick that suggested it, that we put on the agenda for an upcoming meeting a discussion of the current short list of things. I mean, honestly, I have grabbed those from the air over the last 2 years because we're not doing a good job of tracking pieces of the zoning bylaw that need attention. At least I don't feel like I'm doing a good job of that. And we don't have a town planner to do it. So if we want to have a planning board discussion about the zoning bylaw changes that would be of sufficient priority to do the work plan to get to town meeting in the fall, and the timeline for town meeting that I created from interviewing people and the board has seen before, and it was in our packet for this meeting, says we need to jump right on it, no rest for the weary, as soon as town meeting is over. So we need to identify our priorities first. Yes, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's important to identify the priorities. I think that being in a position where we just have to jump on the bandwagon, I guess sometimes you have to do that. But I mean, ideally, I'd like to be in a situation where I can feel confident supporting all the zoning changes that are going to happen.
Nick, I think I agree. I think coming into planning board is such a deep dive, and it, the first couple of years actually is just sort of riding it. And I'm feeling almost just able to understand some of it now after 2 years. So it comes with just being new too, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
With the board's permission, okay to ask John? He's got his hand raised to share his thoughts. Go ahead, John.
Do we have to unmute him?
Oh,
I just did it. Okay.
thank you, I Ching.
Okay. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. It sounds like Diab did the same thing I did, which was wake up at 3 a.m, although Diab may not have been asleep yet, thinking about town meeting. And I won't go into my full analysis, but last night's session was much more polarized and uncivil than I have ever seen any session of Winchester Town Meeting. And I've never heard anyone accuse the chair of another town board of lying, which was done last night. I've never heard anyone get up and tell the town council that they're incorrect. And so one of the things I would recommend doing is, watch the rest of town meeting, but after town meeting is over, have some debriefing discussions with Mary Ellen Lannon, the town manager, someone from the select board, who am I leaving out? The town council as to, Heather Von Mering.
And Heather, thank you,
Yeah,
John.
kind of, what's going on with town meeting, and why has it become so polarized, and try to understand the dynamics of town meeting and in putting together a strategy, for moving forward. I think also if you look, the thing I would put on the table or include in that is getting organized for the MBTA Section 3A. And so in a way, the two articles that the planning board brought forward last night were simple. They should have been straightforward. They should have been approved easily. If those can't pass, then the pessimist in me says there's no chance that town meeting will ever approve anything that's brought forward for the MBTA Section 3A. So, I think in deciding what to bring to the fall, what to bring next spring, I would keep Section 3A in mind, because that's where you're heading, and that's not, there's no option of not to bring that forward.
That's right.
On that. So it would be, I'm curious to see, how other people reacted to, I'm curious how town meeting plays out over the next 2 to 3 nights. And then, what other people's reactions are to town meeting. I can't believe that either Heather or Jay Tallerman were particularly happy about the type of discourse that was occurring last night.
Yes.
So the discussion you just had, I thought was excellent. I thought it was very, very helpful. But I would raise it up 1 or 2 levels to just include what's going on with town meeting in general.
Right. Yes, and that's a great suggestion, to have a debriefing meeting with the players that you suggested, with the planning board. That's a very helpful idea, and I do think it's necessary. And you are right to distinguish between zoning bylaw changes that we need to get right and get passed, PASSED, and zoning bylaw changes that are to fix things that we've identified in the zoning bylaw are causing problems, but there's no time certain, deadline to get those done.
Yeah, I agree with I Ching that I thought Diab did a very good job in both of his presentations, all 3 of his presentations in there. And, I was surprised by the viciousness in which he was attacked. So my advice to Diab is don't do anything, don't rush into anything, but, wait 1 or 2 months and recover and talk to a bunch of other people.
Right. So we will definitely have on a soon upcoming planning board agenda, a discussion of what articles we might agree to bring to fall town meeting, knowing that we're bringing to spring 24 town meeting, the 3A rezoning.
Mhm.
Okay, so if there's other, I mean, like this woman who wanted to just have the usage of a dog grooming studio added, it merits discussion in research and so on. It's just a thing to do. But the 3A is a mandate.
Yeah, we have to devote time to 3A.
Yeah. John, thank you for your comments. That's helpful, always.
Well, I apologize for talking so much tonight. When I joined the planning board meeting, my intention is to 100% listen.
Well, you can see that I'm floundering, not being a skilled chair. And the board doesn't have a planner to interrupt and say, let me explain this, people. And our esteemed chair is out ill, so.
No, I thought it was nice to have you have the opportunity to have it a dry run.
I think, I mean, the other thing I recall back, normally I don't get involved with the planning board all that much, but I was intimately involved in the development and adoption of the new zoning for the central business district. And Brian played an absolutely critical role of presenting that to town meeting and updating his presentation to respond to the kind of issues that he knew were going to be raised. And I think one of the problems last night, and this is not to detract in any way from what Diab did, is we're feeling, and Diab admitted it, Rich Mucci admitted it. There are a bunch of problems with not having a town planner.
It's a big problem. That's correct. And one of the things that happened because of that is that we realized at the very last minute that we were up against the deadline to hold a public hearing on our town meeting warrant articles. And so we did so, but it was not enough time to do the kind of back and forth that Nick has talked about this evening, of really, what do you call it in birding? You flush them out of the tall grass, to flush out the misunderstandings and the earnest protests. We didn't take time to do that, and we didn't miss the deadline, but we almost did, and it's because we didn't have our planner paying attention.
Yeah, no, and the problems, the differences between what the ZBA is doing and their positions, that's not an easy group to work with at the moment. And I think that requires, again, some high level discussions with the town manager and the select board as to how to resolve those differences. I don't think that's something that planning board probably can do by itself.
No.
I think the
I
problem.
don't think so. So, I don't want to go through action items because I'm too tired. I have them all written down. If you'd like, I can send an action items email out in the morning, for you to react to and correct. And then we always have the benefit of Nancy Polcari's excellent minutes. But to do action items in the AM is something that I think I could pull out of my hat. And I have to thank I Ching for letting me sit in a spare room in her house, because in my house, we have no internet.
That's horrible.
It's really awful.
We can grab some wine after it. Anybody is welcome to come join us.
Oh, I'll be right there. Okay, so do we think that we should entertain a motion to adjourn? Go for it, people.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
And I thank everyone for being here tonight, including Rich, who left early, but that's okay, and John especially, and WinCam always, and Nancy always. So thank you, and we'll see you. Do we even know the next date of our next planning board meeting? They've
The
been
ninth?
happening every week, and it's been a lot.
No,
Let me-
no, it's got to be 2 weeks this time, right?
What day are we in? We're in the day we're
The
in.
9th is the next one, so.
I think it's on the 9th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we already know we have two things on the 9th, which is 1016 Mount Vernon and Rocky Ledge.
Okay,
And-
you gonna vote to say goodbye? Did we vote?
Oh, we have to vote. You're right. I Ching. God, you're good. Dick,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
I Ching,
Aye.
and I say aye. I, Sally, say aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Recording